I love that countdown. That was great.
What's up, Zach? So we are relaunching Traffic Tuesdays with my man Zach Wint, and I'm excited that this is kind of our first go around, which I felt it was important that to help understand how we got to where we are today. So part of this is about our backstory, part of this is about our journey as an entrepreneur. I think there's a mix of both. When I think of becoming an entrepreneur, I feel like it's this life journey that not only affects your income, but your family, your faith. Like there's all these elements that come to it, and I feel like there are times where we are tested every single day, but the resolve is here. So
I couldn't agree more. Being an entrepreneur is it's a wild ride. Feasts and famines, on the top of the mountain, down in the valley, right? It's a crazy ride, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I'm excited to help out other entrepreneurs, and that's what Traffic Tuesdays is all about. Really, there's three things you need to be successful in business, right? You got to have a product or service that somebody wants. You have to have a way to collect money, and then if you don't have traffic, you're not gonna have food with your meals. Like you could be the best heart surgeon in the world, but if you don't have patience, you're not going to have food with your meals. And so I'm excited to talk about traffic. I'm also excited. I like how you talked about the faith aspect too. Our logo is actually, if I'm going to tip this up there for those of you who can see it, it's the sword from Lord of the Rings, right? Like I'm a nerd. Yes, I'm a nerd. Sometimes Michael says dial it back a little bit, but that sword represents all of us, right? I think God is literally calling some of us to be entrepreneurs, to grow a business. And when we do things the right way, we do become whole. And having God in part of that changes everything, the way we look at it. And so I'm glad to play a part of this. I'm super excited about helping people grow, especially if you're called to entrepreneurship. I think, Michael, when we look at like the world as a whole, I'm getting a little philosophical right now. It's not the politicians, it's not the focus groups, the community organizers that are going to change the world. I really believe the entrepreneur can impact the world in a very powerful way, not only with the people that they serve or the employees that they have, but just the culture that they build with it. And it's a tough gig being an entrepreneur. A lot of businesses fail. And a lot of them shouldn't fail because, they don't understand how to get traffic. And that's what this is going to be, a free master class on drowning your business in traffic.
It's funny you say that because I remember one time sitting down with this very successful businessman, and he broke my heart. And what he said to me was so true, but like, as an entrepreneur, I didn't want to hear it, right? I was developing this app, and he said, you need customers, or you need traffic just as bad as a man who's having a heart attack needs a hospital. And I was like, oh, it was that sword that you have. It was like a dagger to my heart because I knew what he was saying was so true. And at the time, as I was just starting, I didn't really know and didn't understand how all these elements work. But you're absolutely right. Without traffic, that is basically your lifeline or bloodline to your business, no matter how great of an idea you have or how great of a service you have. So I know, we're both going to talk about our origin story. Did you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I know we argued about that a little bit, but that's kind of up to you.
Right, rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Whatever. I'm going first. Here? I'm going first.
Great minds think alike.
Well, I'm going to cut this. I want this to be brief because I want to get into the tactical stuff, but stories enhance the perception of value. And so by telling stories, like this is a Crux law, I call it. Success leaves clues. And this is one of those things that you should write down, is that stories enhance the perception of value. So it is important to tell stories. When I grew up, I was an only child. I was a little bit spoiled, as you can imagine, as an only child. And so my dad forced me into sports. He's like, you're going to be a team player. You're going to learn how to, interact with people in a non-jerk kind of a way. And I remember, Michael, I played Little League, and I don't know about you. You're probably really good at sports, but I sucked. I sucked so bad at this. It was horrible. Like, I was absolutely the worst player. We go through the whole season, and at the end of the season, they have this huge picnic at the end, and like we all get our little trophy. And I'm like, I remember this was before participation trophies were really a thing, but they just started. I just threw it in the trash because I knew how horrible I was. But at this picnic that they had this huge auction, right, where they had kickballs and bikes and those freezy icy pops, whatever you call those things, and all this cool stuff, all these, the best things you could ever imagine. And they auctioned off these tickets, they sold these tickets, and like there's some people winning. But I remember there's one kid in particular that he just kept winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. I'm like, what is going on over there? Like, did your dad? And I went up and I asked him, like, did your dad just buy a ton of tickets? He's like, no. Remember when we had those candy bars halfway through the year and we had to sell those candy bars? I sold a ton of candy bars. And so I got all these tickets, and that's why I got this bike and I got the kickballs and I got all the stuff. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, I'm going to sell the crap out of the candy bars next year. I'm not going to be good at baseball, but I'm going to sell all the candy bars. And so I remember I play again. Next year, I still suck at baseball, but like the candy bars come up, I'm like, yes, let's go. And so I start door knocking as a little kid. I'm like going to every single door. And I think I sold maybe like 20 candy bars, and it took me forever. Absolutely forever again. And so we go to the end of the year. I only sold 20 candy bars. This kid was selling cases somehow. And I remember he won everything again. I'm like, man, I went door knocking like it was my job, like a 9 to 5 as a little kid door knocking. What did you do? He said, well, you can't go door knocking because it takes too long. What you have to do is you have to go to the grocery store. You ask the grocery store, you can set up a little stand, and then you can sell candy bars to these people. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what he did, Michael, was he figured the traffic problem out. Like, I have a candy bar. I think I was a little cute kid now, and now I'm like more like a Viking than a cute little kid. But at the time I was a cute kid and I had hair on top of my head, but I didn't have the traffic. And so I needed the traffic. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. Third year I play, candy bars come out again. I go to the grocery store. I'm like, hey, can I sell candy bars? Like, oh yeah, no problem. I set up my little stand. They start coming in. I start selling candy like it's going out of style, like left and right. People like, oh, we can get candy cheaper. And so I'm like, yeah, but it helps the youth. It helps the youth. Like, oh, okay. And so they're buying candy bars from me. I sell so many candy bars. I'm there like Monday through Saturday selling all these candy bars. The auction comes. I'm like the king of the world. I win every freaking thing. Like, people are getting pissed off, right? Like, he's winning everything. What happened there? Well, there's another Crux law that we talk about. Success leaves clues, right? I talked a little bit about this before. The power of models. I implemented a model. I wanted all this stuff from the auction. I couldn't figure out how to do it, but I did see there was this kid over here that was getting it. So I was smart enough to ask myself, how is he doing this? And I discovered his model. And it's the same thing in business. We already talked about this. He could be the best heart surgeon in the world, the best oncologist in the world, the best heating and cooling guy in the world, the best plumber, the best real estate agent in the world. But if no one knows about you, you're not going to have food with your meals. And so what we're going to teach in Traffic Tuesdays is the power of models. And so specifically, what I do so well right now and what Michael does so well right now, we seek out the best of the best models that are working in the now. We see how those work. We break them down. We then implement them into our businesses and our clients' businesses. And once we got those dialed in, we have permission to get creative and build new models off of those. And so this is the philosophy. If you really want to kick butt and take names in your local business, whatever that is, you need to find the model that's working. We implement that model, and then we can create your own model.
That's awesome. Listen, I'm an only child as well. So I always wondered what it was like to have a big brother or big sister. So I always leaned on my cousins. But I am that person that goes to the grocery store. And when I see even the Girl Scouts, I said, pack me a box. How much is a box? It's like $72. My wife's like, what are we going to do with all these cookies? I was like, don't worry about it. Just give me the whole box. So I am supporting the young entrepreneur for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I wish my story was as integrated as yours, because mine started way later in life. And funny enough, when I first as I trace back to where this all started, you know, I was a little ashamed at first to talk about this part of my life, but I realized that it did have a very big impact even to the things I do today. And I was a broke college student, you know, as we all are. I'm living in Los Angeles. I'm going to Cal State, and you know, it was just times were tough, right? Like, you know, you're just living day to day, and I remember even back then, like even to this day, like I hoard food, right? Because there was times where like I didn't know where food was coming from when I
Right.
so I would hoard it, and like to this day, I'm like I'm saving it, and I don't even know why I'm saving the food even to today. I look at these, I have these things right here. They've been here for months now. I'm like, well, one day I'm gonna need them. I'm not gonna have food, right? Like it's I don't know what is going on, but it all started from I remember being that broke, and my kids will tell you to this day that all I do is feed them because as long as you're not hungry, you're okay. Like, you're gonna make another. You can make it to another day. But when I was in college, I had a friend who called me up, and he's like, "Hey, you know, do you want to play poker online? There's this new thing." And at the core of like, man, I don't have a dollar to spend. I never liked gambling. No, I don't like to lose money, like none of that stuff. And he was like, don't worry, I'll walk you through the steps. We're gonna be good. So I borrowed $100 from this my girlfriend at the time. And I remember sitting there for a couple hours and I made $500. And
Nice.
$500, yeah, $500 for a broke college kid was
Game
like
changer.
it was like $10,000 at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could eat for a year. And I looked at it, and I remember like having this like switch moment of like, man, I can make money at this thing. And I went to Barnes and Noble and I dove deep. And as my story goes, I started recognizing these patterns of me diving deep into something. So I bought every poker book I can find. And for, you know, the next 10 years of my life, like I would say that um I played. That's how I made my money. It was poker, and I remember like my parents are like, "You're a gambling addict. You're this, you're that," and in my brain, I said, "No, there are gamblers out there. Like I am watching a system. I am seeing everyone is gambling, and I am playing a strategy." But I remember my daughter. I think she was like 5 or 6 at the time, and she came home from like the kindergarten, first grade, like yeah, it was what does your parents do for a living? And she's like, Dad, I told everybody you are a poker player. And I was like, and I just felt so dirty. I was like, don't tell no one, that's our secret. Right? Don't tell no one, that's our secret. So funny enough, when you're playing poker, like you play poker all I traveled the whole country. Of course I played in Vegas. I would travel to Indiana, I would travel to Chicago, I would try to Tunica, Mississippi, I'd play in Florida. And like it's funny because at this poker table, you can meet so many people. I met judges, I met business owners, I met drug dealers, right? Like all it's like
Yeah.
this whole congregation of just like all of society is there. And I remember meeting this business guy, and at the time he owned I think it was like 13 restaurants. And you know, I won a tournament at the time, so I had all this money, and he came to me. He's like, "Hey, look, you know, do you want an opportunity to own some restaurants?" He's like, "I'm thinking about opening up this salad bar in our restaurant." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And like, I could not wait to kind of get out of that world because that world did come with a little bit of a stigma, and being
Sure.
around those people, sometimes it felt icky. So the first opportunity I got to bail, I bailed, and I guess like even during that time of my life, I always questioned myself, like, am I a gambler? Am I addicted? But I think when I got that opportunity, literally I quit cold turkey. Like I didn't play games. That's it. Like I would play 3 or 4 times a week, make money, and then you know, that would be my I would stay up till 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes. It was crazy. But that when I had that opportunity, I cut it off. And that let me know that no, Michael, you weren't this gambler person. So it made me feel good about that piece of it. Um, and as I got into the business world of restaurants, I didn't really understand the business at all, right? Like I wasn't, I knew I wanted to do it. It was
Interrupt,
cool.
right? Because you did, right?
Yeah.
Because you're the poker. playing. The way that you made money was exactly what we were just talking about. Like it wasn't just like I'm going all in on off suited 2 and 7, right? You
Yeah.
found the model, you understood the ratios and the percentages and all this other stuff, and like if someone is showing this kind of hand, how that all plays into effect. So it was understanding the model, implementing the model, and then executing on that. And so that was, well, you didn't feel great about being a poker player. I think that's kind of cool. Like, yeah, my dad plays poker professionally. Like that's pretty badass. It was definitely a business, right? And that's awesome. How long did you do that for?
Man, I did it for a solid 10 years.
Like,
I did it for a solid 10 years.
Feeding your family, unless you're not following like a model with that. Like, you go play poker with me, you're gonna win in like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I did recognize a lot of elements of business from there, but moving into the restaurants again, it was that field of like, hey, I got to dive deep again, right? So I bought a lot of business books. My first business book was actually given to me, and I literally told someone last week they should read this book. And Zach, we should read books, right? We should read this book too. And it's called The Five Temptations of a CEO. And the way it's by Patrick Lencioni, and the way he tells a fable, and he tells a whole story, and at the end of it, it's like, oh, here's the principles out of it. And so, if anybody wants to read a nice, it's a 1 day book, you can read it very quickly, but it's called The Five Principles, or The Five Temptations of a CEO. So I started with
super quick.
Yeah.
Like what you just dropped there. Again, that's another thing that you need to write down. Every single leader is a reader. Not all readers are leaders, but every single leader is a reader. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my origin story in a little bit. I consume books, destroy books. Like this is, we were looking for models, right? We want to grow our businesses. Why not stand on the shoulders of giants that have written these books? There's a way. If we want to become a multimillionaire, there's a few different ways that we can do it. We could follow the models and get there a lot quicker from point A to point B, and that's what we're talking about with Traffic 2 Days. Or you could do the Methuselah method, right? Michael, he supposedly he lived to over 1,000 in the Bible. Like if you have enough time on earth, you can throw enough stuff at the wall. Eventually, something's going to stick. Or you can look for those models, and books are critical, mission critical.
Yeah, what really honed in to me on books, like, as a man, I like military, I like, those type of movies. I'm like, oh yeah, the gun movies and the war. My daughter's in the Navy, and she's telling me all this cool stuff now, and I'm like so jealous. But someone told me, they said, sometimes it could take a person a lifetime to write a book, and you can consume that book in just a few hours or a few days. And what they said was, it's basically like adding a person into your army, right? So every book you read is actually taking someone's life skill model, and it's like this new soldier that you have. So the more books you read, the more soldiers you can have, the more knowledge you have to fight these battles that you're going to be up against as an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what it is, because when you solve one problem, another problem happens, right? So you're going to you have this problem with traffic, and you're going to get this traffic, and then you're going to realize, oh, wait, my systems are broken. So now I need a system, or I need a CRM, or now I need some implementation of hiring new people.
New people. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, that's one thing. And back to reading the books, like I did consume every book. I went in, and I also did John Maxwell's leadership. He had like a school of leadership at the time. It's like 5K. It was the most I've ever spent on some leadership program. But I knew how important it was going to be a leader. So as we were starting the restaurants, I still like brand new to the system. But one thing I did love art. Right. I was a drawer when I was young. I did those types of things. I was very into like computers and stuff. So what I did to basically carry my weight of the business is this, and this is the transition into marketing, is that I helped create the logo. I did the menu boards. I did what I thought was marketing, the website, and like all this. I was like, all right, I'm doing all this marketing stuff, right? So what I found in that moment is that I loved to do that.
Yeah.
I love to and I don't know if it was like seeing the reaction of people or being able to have the ability to bring people into the restaurant. And at the time we had three, and I had this opportunity to sell them. So I sold the businesses, and but from there I generated this app, right? Because now I'm going into marketing, and apps at the time were like brand new. I think the iPhone was been out like 2 or 3 years or whatever, and everybody was app developers. And I called it because it was an offshoot of my restaurant. I called it My City 24/7. And My City 24/7 was basically understanding what's going on around you. Now, at the time, there was no Yelp. I think Yelp was just coming out, City Search was out, and it was like me, My City 24/7. And when I realized in that moment, especially from the John Maxwell leadership, is like you can only take your business as far as your leadership experience.
Oh yeah, love that.
And I didn't recognize what I was taking on, this whole like app thing. It was like nationwide. I had 20 people working for me, and I could only take it so far. And I had opportunity to sell it for big money, which I never did, because I was just like, oh, it could be me. I could do it, right? That's what I thought. Like, I don't need nobody. That's pennies compared to what it can make. Um, so after that business failed, right? But there was a time it ran for like 3 or 4 years where I did fairly well. But I said I had to go back to school because that's what I thought it was. So I went back, got my bachelor's degree. And how crazy I am, right? I tell my kids, you will never outwork me. I said you might be smarter than me, you might have more money than me, but you will never outwork me. So I finished a bachelor's degree. I finished it in 2 years. I went to
Dang.
two schools at the same time. I decided to go get my master's in Chicago at DePaul. I was living in Cleveland. I had all these kids. Like I was working, I was hustling. I would hop on a train at 2:30 in the morning. I don't think you know this. I'd hop on the train at 2:30 in the morning. I would take a train all the way to Chicago. I'd get to Chicago at like 9 in the morning. I would go to school all day. So I would stack all my classes. I would hop on another train at night and then get back home at 2:30 in Cleveland. So I did that for like 3 years. Um, and then what I realized after I graduated and I was taking on clients is like, man, I could make all this pretty stuff, these cool logos. I could make nice websites. I could do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, people want results.
Right.
It wasn't how cool something was. It wasn't how like fancy or like at the end of the day, people just want results. And my friend, which I stole his line. I'm going to try to say it right now. It says
You only need to
design.
give credit 3 times. When you steal someone's line, you got to give them credit 3 times, and then it's yours. It's an
It's
original.
mine. It's in mine then. All right. This is original. All right. He said, design without results is just art. And when he
Ooh,
said that to me, I realized, like, wow, that is so strong. And in that moment, I remember I was working as I thought I was a marketing director for a hospital system in Columbus, Ohio. I was living in Columbus, and I pulled out this book, and I had this book for maybe 4 or 5 years, and it was .com Secrets, Mr.
ooh,
Russell
good one.
Brunson. And I looked at this book and I said, I've had this for so long. I'm going to read the first chapter. And if it's good, I'll keep reading it. If it's not, then I'll throw it away. I read the first chapter and I was like, oh my gosh, where this brought everything that I was learning, everything that I wanted to do, understanding all this stuff, and it just brought it all together. So then again, you go deep dive because that's my personality now to Comma Club, do that for 4 or 5 years, building funnels. I'm running an agency now, and that leads us to here. So I backtrack to where I played poker, and as I think about how I am as an ad agency, a media buyer, it's like at the end of the day, it's like where do I put my money to get the best ROI? And that's how the whole bringing it back to poker, because it was like, all right, is it going to give me the best amount for my monies? Okay, we're in. And I look at that too, like when people come to us and they ask us, um, even the other day we talked about the dog food guy, right? It was like, okay, where do we put his money to get the
Right.
best results?
Right.
Could it be Google? Yeah, maybe. But really, like we gotta break false beliefs. We gotta like throw rocks at the
Right.
enemies. We gotta be disruptive, and disruptive is gonna come from the social medias. So, when people ask us, when people come to us, like I've worked with the whole, so many different industries, the blueprint is probably all the same. It really comes down to targeting, messaging, and your offer, right? That's what we're seeing right now. Our best clients right now have a strong offer, right?
Yeah,
So if you
offers
go back,
are
yeah.
critical, absolutely critical, and we're going to get a lot more into that. That's part of the success that we have. The best clients that we work with, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? It's not just us driving massive amounts of traffic to them. Even the phone calls or the other things, it's working together to craft a message. And taking a step back, I love what you just said. What was it? Design without results is just art. That is so powerful. And I gotta say, I was an only child. I wanted to have a huge family, like a ridiculous amount of kids. And spoiler alert. I was gonna say flash forward. Spoiler alert. I do. I have number 9 on the way
Wow.
in April, right? And so I
Wow.
knew though kids are wicked expensive. They're not cheap. And so I wanted to, coming out of Little League and, going to school and doing all this other stuff. I was actually in seminary to become a priest for a while. And then I discerned out of that. And I'm like, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have that big family. My awesome wife, who I knew for a while, she also wanted a huge family. And so I had to pay for this family, Michael. And so I looked around. This was great because I understood models. Like, who are the people that are making the most amount of money? And the one that I settled on was real estate agents. I'm like, I'm going to become a real estate agent. Man, you just sell a house. All you have to do is just sell a house. And then you make 6%, 7%, a $200,000 house. That's 12 grand or 14 grand. That's amazing. How easy is that? And I was a junior high youth minister at the time. And I jumped into real estate thinking I was just going to crush it because I know everybody. I have the traffic, right? I got the traffic. I got the offer. My offer is I'll sell your house. The problem was no one wanted to do business with me. It turns out when you're like a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, they don't necessarily trust you with their most expensive asset, even though they trusted me, Michael, with driving across their nation with their kids. I'm not so sure about trusting you with the house. And so I had to figure out everything, just like the Little League thing. I had to figure out everything in business. And you know what I did? I started doing design without results. I started making art. I had the best looking business card. I had a cool, I owned, and I still do, realtyinmichigan.com. I found that URL. I had that. I put up a website for that. I made all these things, but I couldn't figure out, I needed a compelling offer. We talked about this in the beginning. There's 3 things you need in business. You need a compelling offer service. You need traffic, and you need a way to take money for it. My offer wasn't that good. I'm a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid. I could sell your house. I know how to do the paperwork, but that's a little scary when most, when you look at most people, most of their wealth is in that house. And so then I had to go through the same thing that I did with the T-ball. I went to training after training. You talked about John Maxwell. That was definitely when I started joining masterminds. Michael and I got together with Russell Brunson, from that world, like a great marketing guy. So consuming all these trainings is becoming really dangerous. And so I will tell you, when it comes to your business, here's another secret that you should absolutely write down. It's critical that you're in rapport with your database. The database, this is another one. The database is the most expensive, most valuable thing you own is your database. Your database is your data bank. And for that data bank to pay you out, you have to be in rapport. And so there's 4 things that you want to do. They need to know you. They need to like you. They need to trust you. And they need to believe that you have the best solution for them. When I coached real estate agents, so I did real estate for quite a while. I ended up growing a team. Top 1% in the nation was awesome. I started coaching real estate agents. That's where Michael and I got together because we started to blow up their world through ads and different ways of bringing traffic into them. This is that rapport was the thing that changed all the clients that I work with. Know you, like you, trust you, and believe you have the best solution. So going back to what Michael was saying, the offer, our what I call a unique selling proposition. Some people call it a MOFR, make offer for immediate response. What is that thing that differentiates yourself? It is so power. This is a great hack that I'm teaching you guys right now. If you can throw rocks at the traditional way of doing heating and cooling, the traditional way of selling real estate, the traditional way of whatever you do, and you compare it against your model, you create curiosity with your model, you get people to come towards you.
I love it. I think we've dropped some gold on this one, and I think that's why in these next one thing that me and Zach both share in these next few weeks that you get to see this is that we love to serve. I love to help people. I love to basically, I give you the farm. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. It's up to you to listen, right? So I think we dropped a lot of gold nuggets today, and I'm excited to see this explode. So, yeah, Zach, how do people get on our mailing list so they know that we're going live or they get to see these trainings?
So cruxlocal.com is probably the easiest way to find us. You can definitely get on Traffic Tuesdays right there. We'll make sure that we're putting them all there. We have a Crux Local Facebook group that we're going to be growing. We do free consultations too on your businesses. And so, Michael was just talking about the dog food guy. Super excited about this guy, local dude. He's making healthy dog food, and like I see all the different angles that we can blow up his business. And so you want to get a hold of us, you want to get the free 90 free stuff, cruxlocal.com. It's got all the information. We'd love to chat with you.
Can I tell you one thing about the dog person? Maybe this is another nugget that we can leave for everybody. I heard this thing, and I don't know who does it, but there is a dog food company out there, and they said, this guy was talking about how do we find the moments in people's life that we can show that we care and create a long lasting customer. So when we were talking about the dog food guy, I told you, I was like, yeah, when people get dog food, like I get the same dog food all the time. Like once I become a customer of the dog food, it's the same dog food. I don't want to change it, whatever. Like maybe I get some different flavors or whatever. But this guy was talking about how this dog food company, what happens is, our dogs pass away. They don't live as long as us, and there's a moment that these dog people are on this subscription where the subscription will cancel, but people are kind of like weird about it because it's almost like cutting off this portion of themselves because that reminds them of the dog. So they said that this company, when they recognize this event that happens, especially in like this dog's life, that they will send flowers, they will send like a care package to the owner, on their condolences. And that moment, that opportunity that they have now creates this long lasting customer, because now where else are they going to buy dog food, right? If a close member of your family dies, which that's how these people look at our pets, it's like there's this moment where it's like we have the opportunity to leverage that. And I saw that moment again when we talk about customer experience. I think it was Nordstrom. I walked into Nordstrom with my wife, and they had a big shopping cart and a mini shopping cart for kids. And I thought about that dog food. I was like, oh my gosh, if you want to go shopping and your kid, is kind of restless, what a great moment to have a
Right.
little shopping cart for the kid to pretend like they're shopping and be engaged. And it's like, so when I think about those moments, like, are there moments in your business to help you, leverage an opportunity so that you can use that to create a customer for life?
So this is another book. We talk about books. You're going to hear a lot about books from us. This is literally what Michael's talking about. This is a pretty decent book, The Power of Moments. When you look at your customer journey, that's another thing that we're going to be getting into. They find you, but then they experience you. Like the cheapest way to really grow your business is to create the power of moments here. There's a hotel that we'll talk about later called the Magic Castle in LA. And I think, Michael, we've talked about this before, where it's this hotel that's like, it's like a 2-star hotel. It's dated, it's clean, but it's dated. There's nothing really spectacular about it. And if you look at it, it's got more reviews than the Ritz-Carlton in LA, and it's got a higher review than the Ritz-Carlton in LA. And Ritz-Carlton is all about the power of moments too. But what this place does is like they have this little hotline that you can pick up the phone. And when you pick up the phone, you put it to your ear, it says Popsicle Hotline. Would you like red, purple, or orange, grape, red, whatever, cherry, orange, and then you order your popsicle, and they come out on a silver platter with white gloves, and then your kid gets this popsicle, and the kids just go nuts. And so like everybody talks about it. It's a simple, stupid, cheap thing, but it's that power of the moment. Like if the dog owner's dog, the dog died and they're grieving, and you're that pet food company, do you send them flowers? Like what other pet food company are they going to go to? You've created a customer. They're going to buy another puppy. And so they're not going anywhere else. Like this is the power of moments. And like we can do the same thing in our businesses. There's peaks and valleys throughout the whole transition of when you look at these things. And if you weave these things in there, the customer becomes your biggest advocate. This is a great way to get more traffic. And it's easy. The easiest way to grow your business is turning your people that you already have into a referral source. That was good, Michael.
Yeah, I'm glad to end it on a hot note. Anyways, we're going to be coming live 52 weeks out of the year, giving you 52 traffic principles to help grow your business in both, organically, paid traffic, everything under the sun, systems, whatever it needs. Thank you for if you've stuck along this long. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.